Yeah, just to orientate us, we had just concluded dealing with the meeting that you had with Mr. Molefe. And you've also testified earlier that after the meeting, you conveyed to Ms. Nyangule that the meeting went well and you had a general discussion. And did you convey any of the discomfort that you experienced in the meeting?
No, I didn't at that time, advocate, but at a later stage.
All right. And at a later stage, you mean when?
It was after we had the Stockvel meeting, and it transpired that allegedly I sent this Sergeant Tsugudu to go to the investigating office.
All right. Commissioners, I'm going to move to the Stockvel issue. And for purposes of that, if we can pull out CJC 184, Brigadier, so that's in tab 4. It's the very first document, and that's the statement of Sergeant Tsugudu. Just so that you can be able to look at it alongside your own statement, I'm just going to ask that you take it out of the file. It will make it easier to navigate between the two documents.
Okay. Ready.
Advocate Pule, I hope the names that need to be redacted are redacted so that they are not mentioned.
Yes, in the morning we undertook that exercise with the Brigadier. Brigadier, maybe let me just make sure at annexure or CJC 184 there, please, wherever you see the name of witness B, just mark it if you haven't already crossed that out.
Thank you.
Are you saying there was an exercise to actually write B and so on instead of the actual names?
We did that for the statements at the start of the day. I'm just trying to ascertain that we've also done it for the statement. Alternatively, if you can just
let's just take a 2 or so minute adjournment just to make sure.
No, I was going to suggest, because we have given him 2 bundles, one where it is redacted. So I'm just going to ask him to have regard to the redacted bundle. Brigadier, can you confirm that you have the redacted statement?
I confirm, Advocate.
Oh, thank you. So you say a few days after your meeting with Mr. Molefe, you then attended a Stockvel where you had other police officers. Is it a police Stockvel or is it just a social with other civilians?
It is not a police Stockvel, commissioners. However, the members of that Stockvel is mainly police officers. And of course, there will be 2 or 3 other civilians, but in majority, we will be sitting in places where, or should I say, me myself, I'll be sitting with, surrounded by the police members.
All right. And at paragraph 29, you just deal briefly with your relationship with Sergeant Tsugudu. And you say that you've been good friends since 2017. Would you have met around the time that you were stationed in Atteridgeville?
Before Atteridgeville, commissioners, because I went in Atteridgeville in 2018.
Okay. And at the time, were you his supervisor or anything, or it was just a casual meeting when you meet him?
It was just a casual.
And has he ever worked under you?
No, Commissioners.
So you've only ever known him as an officer in a different unit?
Correct, Commissioners.
But in terms of rank structure, you're more senior?
Correct, Advocate.
And then you say that you discuss both professional and personal matters. In the professional sense, is it just as you would to vent your frustration if you have a friend in the force, or does this mean even investigative work?
Commissioners, we will at times engage on professional work where, remember, I made mention that in 1996 to 97, I worked in the organized crime.
Mm-hmm.
And Sergeant Tsuguru and other colleagues are working in that environment. And from time to time, they will be talking about projects. And project is in the form of tracing wanted suspects. Then when they are looking for suspects within my vicinity, they will always come and consult with me, and then we will assist one another and apprehend those suspects. So
Okay.
we will engage on professional level.
In the example you just gave, it is one where Sergeant Sukuru is working as a suspect in your area. Does it ever happen that you would require some assistance from him?
Yes, of course. I will require assistance from him.
Can you give an example of in what sense?
We will be engaging from time to time to say, look, in my station, like I was in Atteridgeville, we were at sometimes looking for these organized crime syndicates. And those were the taxi related. Now, I will check with them to say, don't you have leads towards these people that we are looking for? And we will share information if they have and if they don't have.
And in your relationship, do you ask him for favors?
No,
Okay.
but perhaps, I'm sorry, Advocate, maybe if you can, or perhaps with my understanding, because if I'm asking him to check information on the suspects that we are looking for, or I send them, there is this suspect in this particular place, now you are working in and around those areas, please see if you can't arrest this particular suspect. I should think those are favors.
Oh, so you would term that as a favor?
Yes.
And in that instance, is that a request or is that a command coming from a senior officer?
It all depends at what circumstances are we talking. For an example, if I'll be phoning from my work office and request that kind of favor that I've elaborated on, it will be a request because it's not serving under my direct supervision. And they can only take instructions from the direct lineage command. And if I have to give an instruction, which I'm privy to that, I will do it in writing and communicating with his or their commanders. But if I talk to him personally or talk to other colleagues personally, verbally or telephonically, it will be an informal one, which is a request.
Okay. And you have, as you've said, asked for informal requests from him?
Yes,
And then let's get back to the Stockvel. You mentioned in your statement that it was Sergeant Chukudu and the others. Do you remember who the others are, the other members?
Yes, Advocate.
And do you have a problem giving us the names of those others?
I don't have a problem myself. However, you know, when you start mentioning Madlanga Commission, no one will want his name to be mentioned because people have got the fear of being implicated.
I think, Brigadier, it depends on the context within which you mention them. In this instance, they are just parties to a conversation. But I'm happy for you to provide us with the names offline, if that would assist.
Advocate, although I'm not comfortable mentioning their name, really, I had a situation with one of my commanders for just mentioning it, like in this similar situation to say, this colleague of mine told me this, and it was not something bad. It was work-related. And then, up to this today, Advocate, we are not in talking terms. By virtue of me mentioning just his name to say this particular matter was dealt with by him. But I don't have a problem to mention it, to mention the names in camera.
What we have done, what we have done in the past, Brigadier, is to have witnesses. In fact, it would be the witnesses who offer. We have never asked for it. The witnesses would offer to write the names down, and the names would be viewed by the evidence leaders and their legal representatives, and they would then be brought to us, and we would keep those names. But there's something Commissioner Baloyi wants to raise.
I just wanted clarification from Ms. Bowe, where you speak about the others. Is it the others at the Stockvel or the others who came to Commissioner Nkhwashu's jurisdiction to escort suspects?
It is the others that were party to this conversation, because Brigadier Nkhwashu mentioned in his testimony earlier that when he was mentioning this suspect that was escorted, this conversation was had in the presence of Sergeant Sukulu and others. Unless I misunderstood you, Brigadier.
Yeah.
No, you're quite correct, Advocate.
Well, I was going to suggest that to the extent that the others include people who had come to your jurisdiction to escort suspects, I don't see why that should be problematic to disclose, which is a different others from those that were party to a discussion. I don't know if you understand the distinction that I'm drawing.
Yes, I had assumed, and perhaps the wrong impression, that both the others are the same people. They had been party to the conversation, and some of them had been part of the escorting.
Correct, Advocate.
Yeah, Brigadier, I wouldn't understand why you would have a difficulty with saying who came with Tukudu, with Sergeant Tukudu to your jurisdiction escorting suspects. I wouldn't understand why you can't disclose their names.
Okay. Commissioner Walu, to ease everything, I hope they are listening where they are. They will understand that I don't mean bad to mention their names since we are colleagues and friends. Amongst them, I remember there's a warrant officer, Rikoto, and there's Lieutenant Colonel Kalo. Yeah.
My apologies, Khalo,
Yeah.
Khalo.
Yes.
These are the ones that would have come with Tsukudu to your jurisdiction, escorting suspects.
No, Commissioner. Those were the people that we often meet in the Stockvel,
I
and they
see.
were there in that Stockvel.
Okay, thank you.
That go to paragraph 29 and 30 of your statement, the
Of my
main
statement.
statement on page 9. You'll see in paragraph 29, you say, a few days later, I attended a social gathering, the Stockvel, with colleagues. But I think where you specifically mention people is the second sentence of paragraph 30, because you then amended it. Originally, it reads as follows. I recalled my earlier conversation with Katiso in which he had asked about bail to an unnamed friend. I then said to Tsukudu, without instruction, and then it continues. But when Ms. Bowe asked you, was it only to Tsukudu, then you said it was to Tsukudu and the broader group. So in the context of this question, she wants to know, who is this broader group that overheard this conversation? Do I have that correctly, Ms. Bowe?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So this specific conversation in paragraph 30, you mentioned it to Tsukudu and who else? Because you amended your statement to read Tsukudu and the broader group. That's according to my notes.
Thanks, Commissioner. As I've understood you, it was Warrant Officer Velapi that I can recall of heart, but I can check who are the other names.
Lapis
and-
Rikoto.
Pardon, Commissioner?
You say Velapi, but earlier you had
Oh,
said
sorry.
Rikoto and Carlo. So now
as
you,
Keith, Commissioner, Velapi is his first name. It's Warrant Officer Velapi Rikoto. Yes.
Okay.
sorry, Advocate Paul, I think the second person you said was Colonel Carlo,
Not in this.
not in this conversation.
Yes.
So in this conversation, who was there and who overheard the conversation?
Yeah. I'm saying, Commissioner, this Warrant Officer Velapi that I remember, and then those others, I cannot recall their name out of my head, but I see their pictures. But I can find out quickly and submit them.
And so are we then to understand that Lieutenant Colonel Carlo there is one of the people that was escorting suspects?
No, Advocate
Oh.
Carlo is the one who's we normally meet. He was there during the conversations at the Stockvel.
He was there at the conversations at the Stockvel?
Yes.
Okay. So it was Warrant Officer Rikoto and Lieutenant Colonel Carlo, as well as Sergeant Tsukudu.
At the Stockvel, yes.
Those that you can remember.
Yes.
All right. And then it was them that raised this issue of transporting or escorting a suspect in your jurisdiction,
Yes.
right? And then you then say you recalled your earlier conversation with Mr. Molefe, in which he was asking you about bail of an unnamed friend. I just trying to understand what triggered your recollection. And maybe to just explain that I'm asking it in the context when I asked you, what about the friend? Remember when you were in the meeting with Mr. Molefe, he said a friend he had mentioned earlier, right? Now, and you then said that he had mentioned his upbringing and friends that he had. But when he broached the subject at the end of your conversation, he had just started with a friend who had been, I have a problem with a friend who had been arrested by you, and I needed to know if the state would oppose bail. Now, it was in those terms. Now you say, when they say, the Officer Tugudu and others, that they had escorted a suspect, you then recall your conversation with Mr. Molefe. What triggers your recollection?
Thanks, Commissioners. What triggered my recollection about that is when they said we were escorting these suspects, where specifically this police officer Michael Pule is involved and is one of the suspects, and they were escorting him and the others to the court for bail application.
Okay. Now, earlier when I asked you about the friend, I even asked specifically if Mr. Molefe had identified the friend as a former police officer. You had indicated not. So, and you said that he said a friend, he didn't give you the name of the friend. So what about them mentioning the transporting of a Michael Pule led you to believe that it was the same person that Mr. Molefe was talking about? And I accept that you say it was in your jurisdiction, but I imagine there are suspects being transported in and out of your jurisdiction.
Thank you very much, Advocate. As I recall, when they started talking about the bail, and Katiso spoke about the bail in your jurisdiction, where you have arrested my friend. Obviously, I'm not arresting many. I'm not involved in many arrest incidents.
Mm-hmm.
So I could only think of that one because you will recall, Advocate, that during the arrest of Pule, I was acting as a district commissioner. And hence I coordinated the arrest of this particular Tau and company. So I don't normally arrest or coordinate the arrest of those what you call on a day-to-day basis.
Maybe, Brigadier, this is something that I didn't capture. I understood your involvement in the process to have been that once there was an arrest and a case was registered, Gauteng Organized Crime came before the case was actually assigned to an investigating officer and requested it, and a colonel called you and you gave the authorization. So are you saying that your involvement extended beyond that authorization? Your involvement started earlier with the coordination of the actual arrest?
Thank you, Advocate. That's 100%. When the shooting of Armand Swart took place, the members, including the colonel that I spoke about, attended the crime scene. And as an acting district commissioner, they had to report to me that incident because it's a serious incident. Then when they report to me, I'm duty bound, meaning I'm compelled to coordinate where I can on the arrest of the possible arrest of the suspects concerned. So I was actively involved in guiding them what to do, meaning to mobilize aids. Mobilizing aids, I just simply mean that the experts that will be called to come and assist with the processing of the crime scene. So I was actively involved. I was guiding them what to do up until the arrest of this Michael Pule. And therefore, when Katiso said, you arrested this friend of mine, and then these ones, they talk about Michael Pule. It's me who arrested him, in a way. So, and they talk about the bail. Obviously, it triggered my mind to say, this is the only case that I can, and this is of a serious nature, and it's a police officer. You can't forget that.
Maybe just to take a step back, just so that we can understand it in the broader timeline. Evidence that has been presented before this commission is that the murder happens in Vereniging. Just 1 second. There are 3 other crime scenes that are related to the Vereniging case, which is Bramley, where I think Michael Pule was arrested there. And those arrests, in part, were done by Gauteng organized crime. So was it a joint coordination, or they take over from you at some point? I'm asking because this is the first time we're hearing of Vereniging police officers' involvement in the arrest process.
Thanks, Advocate. Indeed, it was a joint operation. They joined along the way. They were called in after the incident.
Called in after the incident?
After the incident, yes, Advocate.
Okay. And so your role was to, called in by who? My apologies.
Pardon?
You say they were called in after the incident. Called in by who?
By the members at the crime scene, including the colonel that I was communicating with.
So was it your instruction that they call them in, or the colonel was acting of his own regard?
No, it was my instructions.
It was your instruction?
Yes.
Okay. So you coordinated, after the incident, you coordinated the arrest of the suspect. It was a joint operation, and you issued the instruction for Gauteng organized crime to be called in.
Exactly, Advocate.
Okay. And so at that time, you then knew that it was one of the suspects was a police officer. From inception, you've always known that.
No, I've known that after his arrest.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, my apologies. When I say from inception, I mean when the matter starts, which would have been the day of the arrest.
Yes, after
Okay.
his arrest, yes.
Now, so the only way you link what Mr. Molefe says with what Sergeant Sukudi and others were describing is because he says arrest by you in your jurisdiction, and they say, oh, and bail. And then they talking about escorting a suspect in your jurisdiction and bail.
100% advocate.
All right. Now, you then say to them, my brother-in-law asked me whether the state is going to oppose bail, right? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, advocate.
Are you okay, Brigadier?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Remember at paragraph 30, you said we should change the someone to my brother-in-law, that you were specific, that it's your brother-in-law who recently asked you whether the state is going to oppose bail. Remember that?
Yes.
So you tell them that, and you told them that you won't discuss these issues. Now, in the conversation you were having before the break, you confirmed to Commissioner Baloyi that ultimately you thought this was the nub of Mr. Molefe's meeting with you. This is what he really wanted to discuss, and the discussion related to the job opportunities was really to entice. This was the core. And then you also explained that having thought about it, you were also uncomfortable with this. And then you get to the Stockvel, they're talking about this. You then say to them that your brother-in-law was asking about this. Why did you feel it necessary to raise this, given your discomfort that you expressed about Mr. Molefe even broaching this subject with you?
Why do I feel comfortable to raise it? You mean here in the commission?
No. Why in that conversation, you raised the issue that, oh, my brother-in-law was asking about bail and I didn't want to discuss it. But recall that before we took the lunch adjournment, you had already said to us that you felt uncomfortable. You thought this is why Mr. Molefe wanted to see you, because he wanted assistance in this matter. You shut that conversation down quickly. Now you're at the Stockvel where you're dealing with officers who are transporting the same suspects, and then you raise to them this discussion. Why?
It was it just came to my mind during that time, and on a passive note, we usually talk about such things and say, oh, when you're talking about this, my brother-in-law came in and was talking about this. So I thought it just quickly triggered my mind at that particular moment in time. I didn't think twice about it as to whether I should talk about it or not, but I just quickly touched on it.
Can I ask, Brigadier, it seems from your account that something is missing, that your discussion with Mr. Molefe, it has, for this later part of your account at paragraph 30 to be complete and to make sense, it has to be that when Mr. Molefe met with you, he did mention who the person was, what the case was about. Because he wasn't asking you in general terms. If all he was doing was saying, your people have arrested a friend of mine, your people are arresting friends of his or arresting people all the time, not you, but in your jurisdiction. People are getting arrested. So if all Mr. Molefe said to you was, you have arrested, meaning your people have arrested somebody, it could be any case, right? So he has to have been very specific with you what case it is or who that person is for you to be able to make that link at paragraph 30, that when Tsukudu says, we were here escorting suspects and then telling you who that suspect is, Michael Dow, you don't get triggered in a vacuum of that conversation with Molefe. You get triggered if that's how it happened, because Mr. Molefe did mention who it was that he was talking about. Otherwise, this account has got holes in it between your meeting with Molefe, who just asked about, will the state oppose bail without saying what the case is about, without saying who is involved, only saying, in a case that your people arrested my friend, will the state be opposing bail? That conversation doesn't make sense in itself. You know, it has no context whatsoever, and you could never give him an intelligent answer. But it gets worse because in paragraph 30, somebody else starts a conversation. This time they mention a name, and they probably mention even what the incident is about, but just from the name, you say you know what that case was about from what they say. And it triggers the Tau conversation. It doesn't add up. There's something that's missing in your account, especially of the discussion with Mr. Molefe.
Thank you, Commissioner Malui. Commissioner, let me put it this way. Commissioner, if I was sitting where you are sitting right now, I will be obviously and really thinking like you are thinking. I will be suspecting that there is a missing puzzle here. But I thought about it also. How did this matter happen to be the Tau who is a friend of Molefe at the end of the day? Was it by coincidence? How did it, but it exactly happened the way I put it, that I stopped Katiso on his tracks after he told me his friend that he grew up with, but he did not, perhaps he was going to mention the name Commissioner. Should I not, have I not stopped him before? Because he was still narrating, but I stopped him. But when the Tsukudi and Rikotso Hele start talking about this, about the bail, the word bail, Commissioner, and that this person was arrested by me, it put the name into me. But these friends of mine, I haven't mentioned the name yet. But it happened to be Michael Pule. And later, it happened to be the very same Pule who is arrested with Katis. So I really agree with you the way you perceive it, but really, that is what happened. I wouldn't know how did it happen that it's the same person that Katis wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think what I'm struggling with is that all that Tsukudu says to you is that I was in your jurisdiction escorting suspects, at least according to your statement. He says, we were in your jurisdiction to escort suspects. And then he mentions that Michael Tau is involved or involving a police officer. If he doesn't mention a connection to Molefe, who is your brother-in-law, if he doesn't say that suspect is connected to Molefe, if he doesn't say that, one. Two, if he doesn't say that it has to do with the Aman Swat case, but Molefe needs to have said to you, it relates to the Aman Swat case for you to say, well, you know, actually my brother-in-law was asking me about bail. There's just missing information that makes it your account incomplete. It may well be that in the realm of possibilities, it happened the way you say it happened, that Mr. Molefe, all he said was, a friend of mine that I remember I mentioned, a childhood friend, he's been arrested. Rather, I want to know about whether the state will oppose bail, and you shut it down. And then paragraph 30 happened. In the realm of possibilities, maybe it happened that way, but to me, something is missing in that account, how you get to connect the two. The Tsukudu conversation, how you get to connect it with the Molefe conversation. If Molefe didn't say to you, it relates to the Amanswat case, or that friend happens to be a police officer, it's someone that I grew up with. I'm struggling with that account.
Perhaps, Brigadier, if we then look at Sergeant Sugudu's statement, it will shed some light on why it's difficult to accept that more wasn't said on either occasion, whether it was the meeting with Mr. Molefe or the Stockvel interaction. So if we start at paragraph 3 of Sergeant Sugudu's statement.
Please remind him where he is, because he had gone back to the original statement.
It's the one that we removed from.
I took it back.
Oh, you took it back. It is the first document under tab 4.
Under?